Okay, everyone. Well, thank you so much for joining us. We're going to go ahead and get started, and if others kind of join in as we go along, then we'll just sort of move forward and catch them up. I'm Tiffany Bafor. I'm the director of the MSW program, and we've just been getting a lot of feedback from students about their wellness and wanting to kind of come up with ways to help students sort of invest more in their wellness and be more conscious about their self-care. And I know that's just so important given the pandemic, and many of us have been shut down or working at home or going to school at home, and it's just like a new way of life for us all. So just kind of figuring out new ways to stay healthy both mentally and physically in the new normal. So I'm going to introduce Jason. He's our president of our Master of Social Work Student Association. And he'll give a little bit of context as well to this project. And we're planning essentially a series around wellness. So we have at least one other event scheduled before the end of this semester. And we're hoping to make this a continuous endeavor. So please share with other friends if you enjoy coming, and we'll hope that this will grow as time goes on. Jason?
Thank you, Dr. Baffer. Just want to welcome other members of the cohorts. And I'm really excited for these wellness hours, especially with the amount of stress that we can carry as students. I think being social workers in training, we tend to want to give, and commit to a lot of projects. And self-care kind of goes out the window. Or it's an ambiguous term that's used many times with little application. I've been impressed by people I've met that schedule the time in and that are willing to share what works for them and what other people can try. So my hope is that as people become aware of these wellness hours, that they're able to come and at least find a little bit of something that'll work for them and hopefully help relieve a bit of the stress that comes with being a grad student and an undergrad student as well.
So we have two great speakers today. We have Eli Corarubias, who is from the Office of Academic Advising, and she's going to talk to us a little bit about the resources available here at the U. I think it's really surprising in a wonderful way, the amount of resources that are available here at the U. So she's going to talk about that, and we have actually one of our fantastic MSW students, and I'm really excited that we have an opportunity to really feature some of the work of our students through this series as well. So Sarah Elizabeth is going to talk to us a little bit about the help me, is it the Needs Center?
So I'll be talking about college student basic needs.
Okay, so I forgot the first word in the center. It's the Basic Needs Center. Mm-hmm. And I hope you'll also talk to us a little bit about your involvement in the development. And please don't be shy, and to talk to us about all the great things that you've contributed to the development of that center. And then Sarah Elizabeth's also going to talk to us a little bit about yoga and relaxation techniques. So really excited for today. And thanks everyone for coming, and thanks to our great speakers.
Okay, well, I'll go ahead and get started. So again, my name is Eli Covarrubias. I'm the Academic Advising Coordinator in the College of Social Work's advising team. And I'm here to talk to you all about a variety of resources, like Dr. Bafor was saying, that is available to graduate students to promote your wellness and health. When we think about health, it's not just our mental health or our physical health, but there's also the biological, spiritual, and financial wellness aspects of it. And so I was wondering if somebody can help me allow me to share my screen because I have the websites up. And as I'm going through the several departments and services, I'll go ahead and put each of the websites in the chat so that folks can easily refer to those. I'm not going to go in great depth, right? And then I will, because Sarah Elizabeth is going to be talking about the Basic Needs Center, I'll definitely let her go ahead and talk about that wonderful resource. So let's see. If I say, okay, great, it's letting me. Let me just make sure I choose the right screen. Okay, perfect. I think, let's see, over here and share. Okay, can you all see this website here that says the University Counseling Center? Awesome, okay, great. So I am going to go ahead and start with some resources on campus that first focus a bit more on our mental, psychological, and emotional well-being. So through the University Counseling Center, there are a variety of free services that are available to graduate students right now due to a generous grant. So for example, when you get onto the homepage here, you're going to see some contact information. So if you have any questions about any of the services that I'm going to mention, you can easily contact them just by going to the homepage here. But over here on the right-hand side menu, there's some really great, the menu bar lets you see what kind of services are available, kind of outreach, and different resources available to various folks on campus. But important things to highlight is that they do offer intakes for individual therapy sessions, couples therapy sessions, as well as group therapy sessions. And then for the group therapy sessions, they provide like general support groups, psychotherapy groups, and very specific skilled-based groups. They also provide crisis appointments for students that are needing more immediate support than maybe what right now, rather than what you would do when you're actually scheduling a regular appointment for an individual or group or couples therapy session. They also do provide case management support to students. And so these services are free, but it is important to note that if there is a no-show or if there is a late cancellation, because there is such a high demand for these services to our students across campus, then there is a $10 late fee or no-show fee. So just kind of keep that in mind. And then additionally, they also provide very low-cost services for psychiatric medication evaluations, medication management, and psychoeducational assessments as well. And those fees do vary, but they are at a more affordable, lower rate cost. And then, of course, the no-show late cancellation fee also differs from the $10 one that I referred to earlier. Additionally, the Mindfulness Center is actually embedded within the University Counseling Center, and they have their own webpage as well. And they provide a variety of mindfulness workshops and services for free, no late fees associated with these at all. But you'll notice that here on the homepage, they'll mention a variety of workshops and services that they offer, such as drop-in mindfulness sessions. Every weekday, at least a 30-minute lead meditation service is provided, mostly 12:30, but there are a couple of them that are 3:30, except for on holidays or closure days. And then they provide a variety of workshops around, like, for example, radical self-compassion for Black, Indigenous, or people of color students, coping with the COVID chaos, right? Because we are continuously experiencing all of that right now. Or workshops that focus just specifically on how to deal with anxiety and depression. Or for our neurodiverse students, very specific skill-based workshops that can help you with managing your academics and various aspects of your life. So a lot of these services actually do require registration, and they are free, but they do have kind of like on a series basis, and they're rotated throughout the semester. So it's good to come to this website and see what is of interest to you. Oh, and then one that I really like that they point out, because I've actually done it myself, is the Mindfulness Work-Life Balance series. And that's a 4-week series, once a week for 4 weeks, on focusing on balancing work-life, which I really, really appreciated and learned a lot of tips. And it does focus it's targeted very specifically for graduate students and then staff and faculty as well. So other resources that are available on campus that really promote a sense of community and wellness involve the Women's Resource Center. Oh, and then also you'll notice they already opened up their scholarships for next year. So go ahead and apply for those who want to look into these opportunities. But I really appreciate that they provide also individual services in terms of counseling and support groups. But one of the differences between the support groups at the University Counseling Center and the Women's Resource Center is that they do require an interview for the groups through the Women's Resource Center. So these groups and counseling services are for free for women and femme-identified folks. So that is important to point out. And then for the groups, they do require that interview prior to joining the group, just because it is a very targeted and specific space to have a welcoming, affirming, and safe space for folks who identify in those ways. They also, you'll notice here at the very bottom of their page, they provide a variety of programming that is available to promote health and wellness to students. And I did want to point out, they actually have a monthly graduate student meetup. So for graduate students across the university, it's a really great way to meet other people, get connected in a virtual world. Sometimes that can be a little bit harder. And so finding those ways of finding connection and staying, getting to know new folks, interests, and supporting each other is really, really important. And then I also appreciate, I'm also big into yoga. But there's a dialogue and movement one that I wanted to point out as well. And it's on the third Thursdays of each month. And so upcoming next week. And so, but every month they provide a variety of programming that really supports women and femme-identified folks. And so this is a really great resource. Another area that supports a sense of community is the Encompassing Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion Office. Now they oversee all the partnering offices across campus. For example, the American Indian Resource Center, the Black Cultural Center, the LGBTQ Resource Center, the Center for Ethnic Students Affairs, and of course the Dream Center. All of these offices, there's a lot of them, but all of these centers and resource offices are here to develop initiatives aimed at fostering more awareness, advocacy, and action through targeted services that support our underrepresented student populations. So depending on the office, we'll determine the type of services that they're offered, because they're really trying to target what are the needs of that particular community. And I would definitely encourage you all to check out any of these. They're linked here just on the homepage of the Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion Center. So I would definitely recommend that you go in and check out what kind of specific services and resources they have available to you, particularly if you identify in that kind of way, or even if you are, you have family members who do. They provide a lot of great support and resources and inform you about community resources as well that can help you as you're supporting other folks in your life in those identities and intersectional identities. And then another aspect that I really appreciate about the University of Utah is oftentimes when we think about wellness, we don't think about the impact that the finances had on us, right? That's such a big stressor in our lives. And I do appreciate that the university has the Financial Wellness Center. It is a fabulous, fabulous resource on campus. They work with graduate students as well, and they provide a variety of services. So for example, the coaching, individual and confidential one-on-one hour appointments to help you with a range of financial concerns from, for example, if you wanted to learn how to budget, or you wanted to understand your loans better, or how do you start building your assets, or how do you apply for scholarships. There is a variety of individualized coaching that they can help you with. And even, for example, it's like, how do I reduce my debt or improve my credit scores? Like, it's just all things related to financial resources. And I really appreciate that, because you go in with somebody who is very trained and can help you look at your situation individually and really help you meet your financial goals, and also strategize ways to likely help you relieve some of that stress when we're dealing with mounting financial concerns, particularly in the pandemic that has increased significantly for a lot of our students. And so I think this is always a great resource that folks tend to not want to ask about, but something that in our office, we know we're always nudging students towards, especially when we start hearing, you know, like, oh, I'm having issues around X, Y, and Z insecurities. Not only am I thinking about all these other fabulous resources, but I'm always like, Financial Wellness Center, they're fabulous. And then I do appreciate we are in tax season time, right? And so they actually provide information about free tax services for anybody whose household income is less than $66,000, which I imagine many of yours are. And so there's some really great information in there on how to file your taxes for free. A lot of community resources as well, which I really appreciate, because sometimes some of us are thinking about more long-term goals. How do we start planning for getting a home after we finish graduate school? Or how do I pay off the rest of my graduate school debt? Whatever it may be, right? But there are some, and then they also provide workshops just on a monthly basis. So this link here is a good place to go, or even sign up for their newsletter for tips on how to manage money as a college student, which I really appreciate. And then a couple of more of the physical well-being and services that are available on campuses. There is the Student Center, the Center for Student Wellness, and they provide a range of services, particularly, let me go down a little bit more. I liked it that they have them here. Workshops on training on a variety of topics around health and wellness and sex education. They also provide confidential and free services for victims of intimate partner violence, a lot of advocacy work, understanding the effects of trauma, safety planning, information on community resources, either it be for yourself or a loved one or someone that you know that you're supporting through that process. Right now, during the pandemic, they have had to put on pause the free HIV STI testings. But once we can come back to campus, they'll be offering it again. But the good thing is when you do go into here, they will refer you to the Utah AIDS Foundation if somebody needs to go ahead and get tested for that, or if you know somebody, because that foundation is offering free testing in the community. And then there's always opportunities for getting involved. If a student is interested in promoting health and wellness, there is a really great opportunity to get involved through the Student Wellness Center. And lastly is brand new, which I was very excited to start telling my students about as well, is there at the university is the Campus Contraceptive Care Clinic. It started just this 2021. And you students now have the option to receive all forms of birth control with no out-of-pocket cost or insurance required at the Campus Contraceptive Care Clinic. It's brand new, super exciting. All you have to do is have a valid UID, and then you wound up contacting the OBGYN clinic at the U of U Health Center Hospital, and you schedule a telehealth appointment where you'll be able to receive free contraceptive counseling with one of their providers. Now it's so new that I've only so far been able to refer my students to the article at the U. So this is the link that I'll go ahead and provide in the chat, but it does provide you like how the scheduling appointment and kind of what are the next steps for that in terms of getting yourself set up to go ahead and schedule an appointment and seeing what kind of contraceptive care you might need. So I know I just went through a range of resources and services available on campus, and I realized that I forgot to be putting the links in the chat, but I'll make sure to go ahead and do that shortly. But yeah, if you all ever need help getting connected to any of these services, academic advisors are here to help you. We're really happy to provide that warm handoff and get you connected to the resource that you feel is going to help you in your health and wellness journey while you're in your studies and your time here at the University of Utah. I don't think I saw any questions come up in the chat, so yeah. But I'll be sticking around for most of the rest of the workshop. So feel free to go ahead and chat me if you have any questions, and then I'll start putting this in these links in the chats as well. Thank you. I'm trying to see how do I get myself off of sorry, I don't share my screen a lot.
I think Jason has a question, Eli.
Oh, yes, Jason, what question do you have?
I'm just trying to come from my perspective, but maybe some other students can identify where all these services are really nice and stuff, but how do you determine like when it's actually appropriate to like engage with them? Do you have to wait till a crisis happens, or are there ways that you've noticed students have been able to take advantage or notice that they can engage with these services before that happens?
That's a very, very good question. I'm really glad you asked. No, I would say don't wait for a crisis. There is the crisis support, right, service available through the University Counseling Center. But honestly, sometimes students already know when they might need help with something. If there's a situation in your life that's creating higher levels of stress, or you feel that you're already in distress and it's constantly creating worries, it's affecting the way that you're sleeping, it's distracting you from your studies, that's always a good time to start thinking about, like, even if you don't know where to start, you can connect with us and then we can help you kind of brainstorm what resources on campus would be, or which office, right, would be a good place to start. Because we don't want each situation to turn into a crisis where then it becomes unmanageable. And starting earlier, because sometimes students will just go ahead and start going to support groups because the pandemic's terrible and the racial injustices happening across the country, it weighs on us, or we're worried about X, Y, and Z. And so I would say you don't have to worry for it to be such a very big thing to start seeking that type of support. I'd say focusing our health and wellness at always is a good thing. I know sometimes I have a hard time balancing that. But like you were saying earlier, it is pretty impressive when somebody can go ahead and carve out that time regularly and know that this is something that's going to support them, either be a sense of community, their own mental health and wellness, their own financial wellness, whatever aspect that they're really wanting to work on, or aspects, because you don't have to look at it as individual areas, but you could, depending on your time, you can work on all areas. Why not, right? These are free services, so go ahead and take advantage of it. I know that when I had less assignments and busier times when I was in my master's program, I would try to go seek these like at my university, the services a lot more frequently, because I knew, oh, during finals, it's not going to be as possible. Or so I would say, take advantage of them when you have some time here and there, poke around, put them in your calendar. And if it works out well for you to show up to X workshop or training or group, that's just a little bit that you can do to continue to care for yourself. And the more that you do it, the more it becomes part of your routine, which I think then makes it easier to keep putting yourself first. So yeah. And then we can always help connect you to whatever you think that you need help with. And then oftentimes we also say, well, have you thought about this or this? And then we also add that information in there for our student as well.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. Well, I don't see any other chats, and I want to make sure I'm mindful of Sarah Elizabeth's time as well. So thank you, folks. And then I'll go ahead and stay on. And if anybody else has any questions, you're welcome to connect with the advising team or just chat me privately as well. Not a problem.
Thanks so much. Sarah Elizabeth, would you like to start? Great job, Eli. I learned a lot.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Dr. Buffer and Eli. That's terrific, and there are amazing resources. And I would also say that you are paying for many of the resources through student fees, and so do not hesitate to use them because they are part of your experience. I know, especially as social work students, because as Dr. Buffer mentioned, I'm an advanced standing MSW student graduating this spring. We're the helpers. We have a strong identity as helpers. And I also feel strongly that we need to be able to help ourselves. And the way that makes sense for me is that I'm not going to ask a client to do anything that I'm not willing to do. If I'm not willing to seek out support and help for myself and engage in these practices that I'm sharing and advocating for, then I'm not going to ask anyone else to do it, because this is part of being in integrity in a profession that values care, and care starts with ourselves. And I've learned sometimes the hard way that if I'm not doing well, then I'm not going to be as well in helping others. I'm not going to do as well. So with that, I'm going to talk about college student basic needs, which is something I'm super excited to always have the opportunity to talk about. So I'm going to share my screen here. So I know many of you already on this call, and for those that will be watching it through the recording, I mentioned I'm a student. I'm also a staff member here at the U in the College of Health, and I'm a certified yoga therapist and medical Qigong instructor for the Huntsman Cancer Hospital, and I'm an education instructor at Primary Children's. So what are basic needs? Yeah, like it's, something that's kind of, we have different ideas about. And here in the work that I do, we kind of define basic needs as the economic, the food, and the housing experience among both undergraduate and graduate students in our campus community. So as social workers, we know that if someone is struggling in the domains of housing, housing insecurity or homelessness, or food, hunger, food insecurity, right? Or as Eli mentioned, the Financial Wellness Center, right? As a resource that if we're struggling with finances, then we're not going to necessarily be able to have the circumstances in our life to thrive. Now, this work has been gaining national momentum over the last few years, and college student basic needs has been elevated in conversation amongst in institutions across the country. So the Hope Center, which did the first kind of formal survey of college student hunger and homelessness, recently released their 2019 findings and indicate that basic needs support is something that is very difficult for students. It's a pervasive issue. It isn't isolated to one institution. It happens at institutions all across our country. That it definitely is a safety issue. It's an equity, diversity, and inclusion issue, and something that needs to be addressed. Some of this data is really interesting. I mean, 39% of students in their 2019 report indicate that they were food insecure in the last 30 days. And so when we think about hunger, I mean, that might be skipping a meal. That might be like you're on campus during a portion of the day and it's expensive to eat on campus, so you skip it, right? Or you might be running low at the end of the month, that kind of stuff, right? 46% were housing insecure. So, that varies, like, car living, sofa surfing, hanging out at family's house, friends' houses, right? That kind of thing. 70% who experienced food insecurity, housing insecurity, and homelessness were employed. That's a social work advocacy issue for you right there, for those that want to be advocating for increasing the minimum wage. 70% is not.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
I'm so sorry to interrupt. I might have missed this because I have children screaming in the background. Are these stats just University of Utah students?
Across the country. This is the 2019 Real College Survey that was administered by the Hope Center.
Okay.
That was a constellation of institutions all across the country.
It's right there on the screen. Sorry.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
That is crazy. Wow.
Pervasive issue.
Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a retention issue, right? So when we think about college student persistence, when we think about completion, these are the barriers that prevent that. Right. And I come to this work with a very personal story. I've experienced hunger and homelessness. I was a single parent, a single teenage parent, and it took me 23 years to earn my first college degree after attaining my GED. And a lot of those issues were basic needs, right? Or prioritizing work, working sometimes 2-3 jobs, cobbling together a few credits at a time. So I come to this work with that lived experience that informs that I struggled a lot, and I struggled a lot in silence, and that's not something I can be okay with I don't want anyone to struggle in silence, right? And we need to elevate the visibility of these issues, how pervasive it is. The University of Utah is making a difference, right? We've got a group, a Basic Needs Collaborative. I've been a part of the work. I started on the Homeless Student Task Force about 5 years ago, which was mainly talking about crisis, to Jason's point, like things hit critical issues and that's when we seek help. But really this group wanted to get ahead of it and talk about prevention and what can we do to help students before we get to major crises, right? And how can we elevate the visibility of this work and start talking openly about it as pervasive as it is. So the Basic Needs Collective is an interdisciplinary group. It's out of the Student Affairs, Student Support Services area, service unit. And here's the website, I'll put it in the chat. But we have a huge team that cuts across units all over campus. I represent more of the health campus side, so advocating for graduate students in the health professions, also advocating for students of all kind of different levels, trainees, interns, postdocs, graduate students. We're often the ones that are like, oh, they're professional students, they've got it handled. And so we need to be talking about how those issues persist among all levels of trainees and students on our campus. There's some resources. So I would not be doing my social worker job unless I gave you some resources, right? The mobile U app, I have it on my phone. So the little U icon, okay. I don't know if many of you know about it, but here you can download this on your phone if you have the data bandwidth to do so. You can actually access it online as well from like a computer lab computer. But if you look under health, well-being and support, and then the Basic Needs Center, we have immediate resources. So that's like the lowest impact, right? You can go, it's self-service, you click on what you think you might need support in, and there's a resource for you. If you request resources, you can fill out this Qualtrics form. It's anonymous, except for you do need to provide an email address. So those resources can be emailed to you in any of these 6 domains: food, housing, insurance, finances, mental health, legal services, and COVID. And you'll get an email with not only campus resources, but recognizing we have all types of students, online learners, people in state, out of state. You'll get a variety of resources across the state. Okay, so that's like right there, some easy access, low impact. If you also go to the Basic Needs website, you can join virtual office hours. So we recognize especially during the pandemic, that, as Eli mentioned, people are experiencing greater financial hardship over time, right? And that maybe you didn't need resources 2 weeks ago or 2 months ago, but you do now, right? And so you can log in. It's through ConnectEd, which is the advising platform. Every University of Utah student has access to it. So you can, between the office hours of Monday through Friday, 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. It's right there on the screen. you can log in and talk with someone. So if like you actually just want to get a feel for what's available to you, you're not quite sure, but you want to ask some questions. These are team members from across campus, and a lot of the centers that Eli mentioned have office hours. So that's a way to connect with them as well. Okay, so that is happening right now, and it's a resource assessment. Now, the Basic Needs Center does not provide any direct service. We are what you would consider a coordinated resource hub. So we're about warm handoffs, we're about connections, we're about support. And so that's why we have such a large collective with service centers and units from all over campus and the community. Like we have people from 211 on our group, from all different areas, so that we're working together so you don't have to do the legwork. Because when you're struggling, and I've been there, it's hard enough to muster the courage to ask for help, let alone try to navigate the complex and sometimes really difficult service, like ways to interface with services. So the Basic Needs Center is looking at helping to be the holder of information. So you can just say, look, I need some help, and start to describe the situation and receive that care and warm handoff. Okay. We also, I'll talk about our Fiji Pantries. We have 3 locations on campus. The one that's in the Student Union, it's in the basement. And then we have a health campus. I actually founded the Health Campus Fiji Pantry Satellite last March, a year ago, almost. And I run that pantry. And then we have one in the university student apartments as well, a satellite there. And you know, great resource. I just had a great donation from the Junior League of Salt Lake City at our health campus pantry that really focused on hygiene items. So household items as well, and baby care items. So we have those available in the Census Lounge at the Health Education, the Eccles Health Science Education Building. And otherwise, it's in the ping pong lounge. The Census Lounge is where all the ping pong tables are, and you can go. And that pantry serves hospital-based healthcare workers, faculty, students, and staff in the health campus. So be sure to utilize those resources, because a food pantry is never just about food. It's about helping to maybe offset some of the strain, the stress, the costs of things. Maybe you can redistribute that money, right, that you would be spending on some of these items. So that is a great resource. Okay. I'm not monitoring the chat. I'm terrible at that. So if there's any questions, just unmute and please ask. And I'll give it just a moment if you want to do that. Okay, last thing I want to say about the Basic Needs Center is we actually recently received some supporting philanthropic money. We are building out a Basic Needs Center right next to the Fiji Pantry in the basement of the Student Union. So there will be a brick and mortar. Right now we're operating virtually through the app and through the ConnectEd virtual hours, but we hopefully, like I saw architectural plans happening recently, we'll have a brick and mortar Basic Needs Center in the fall of 21. So that's really exciting. So stay tuned for that. And now I get to talk about another love of mine. Thanks, Dr. Buffer, for asking me to talk about things I love to talk about, which is yoga. I started practicing yoga in 1994. I took yoga and bowling at Salt Lake Community College. I had just earned my GED and I enrolled in Salt Lake Community College, and I said, okay, what classes am I not going to fail? And I thought, okay, yoga, I don't know quite what that is. I think they might just hug me. I'm not sure. And bowling, I was like, yeah, I get to wear the shoes. I think I get to use the bumpers maybe. Is there a bowling test? I don't know. And by the way, I got a B in yoga. So if you want the A student for yoga, that's not me. But it was really interesting. I was super punk rock and I was super resistant in the beginning, but I hung with it because I wasn't going to let this yoga thing and this stretching and bending and breathing thing best me. And it's really been an enriching part of my life. My life is unrecognizable thanks to the practice of yoga. I will say there is a running joke in my family, like what if I became like a bowling instructor instead of a yoga instructor? Different paths, I don't know. I don't know, but yeah, I love yoga. I wanted to talk a little bit about the difference between yoga and yoga therapy. Yoga has been around a very long time. I did not invent it. I do not own it. It is a living tradition. I share it because I love it, and I give honor and respect to the transformers, the revolutionaries, the reformers, the people that have been expressing this tradition in their own way for millennia, right? It is a practice that enhances well-being through focusing on physical, mental, emotional, spiritual domains. And so it's a holistic approach. It's basically an exploration of what it is to be human, deeply human, and inhabit a form. The difference around like going to a yoga class at a studio, which I've taught for like 13 years in a yoga studio, and yoga therapy is that yoga therapy is more of an individual assessment, that we utilize the theory and the tools of the tradition of yoga to meet an individual's needs or small group needs. So I've done yoga therapy groups through like Caring Connections, and I've been at the Huntsman Cancer Hospital for almost 8 years as a yoga therapist. Yoga is something in action. Like I think of, you know, social work in action. We're really at the forefront, right? We're at the lines doing the good work, getting in the good trouble, the necessary trouble, as John Lewis would say. right? But yoga is a set of behaviors that develops this integrated approach. So how is it that we can inhabit ourselves wholly and fully, and thus express that in our lives in meaningful and powerful ways? Okay. So that inquisitive curiosity that we cultivate within us and express without us. And then it's also about developing a healthy capacity to ground our bodies in the moment and cultivate relationships. Yoga is really a study of relationships, and that's why I'm also drawn to social work, because it understands the importance of human relationships. Mind-body practices, letting that inner wisdom emerge. So we practice some yoga. You don't need a yoga mat. You don't need no yoga clothes. I don't wear yoga clothes. I wear sweatpants with holes in them mostly. I practice my yoga. Too much information. But I'm going to share a couple of things. I love to share these, we think of like yoga poses, like big and standing on their head stuff, right? But yoga also has very subtle practices and incorporates a lot of different aspects in order to explore within. So mudras are very powerful in yoga. In fact, the poses you see on like TV and people doing are full body mudras, like symbols that we align energy channels in our body through these expressive forms, these shapes that we form with our body. But there's also digital mudras with our hands, right? So I have these, one of my dear friends and colleagues gave me these mudra cards many years ago that I love to share. And so a mudra example would be this. I think this is a pretty ubiquitous one, right? Can you see that? You see it everywhere, the heart, the hands forming the heart. Yeah, it's actually a very ancient yoga mudra. I didn't make it up, someone else did a very long time ago. But this mudra core quality is about honoring our thoughts and our feelings. Honoring our thoughts and our feelings. Let's all try that together. Just a couple of deep breaths, relax the shoulders, wiggle it out a little bit. Maybe 3 breaths, honoring our thoughts and feelings. Notice what there is to notice in your body, in your heart, in your mind, and your breath. One more big breath in and breath out. Good. And release that. Maybe shake out a little bit. Now, this mudra, I think also it has an association on our campus particularly. I'm not making this up. Okay, yeah. Spiritual unity. Okay, the Sanskrit term is Shakata Mudra, spiritual unity, right? And if we think of the U, we flash the U, right? Because we want to show we're a part of a group, we're a part of something bigger than ourselves, right? And when I think of spirit, I think of like bigger, universal than us, right? We're a part of something. We have a place in the family of things. So let's do like 3 breaths. Core quality, harmonizing, unity, part of the family of things. Maybe one more big breath in and breath out. Good. And then release and shake that out. Now I've got 2 more. These 2 mudras I practice every single day, and sometimes more than once a day, definitely every day. These 2 mudras are about protection, energetic, emotional, and especially in the work that we do, we're around a lot of different energies and in places with spaces and people, right? And there's a lot to hold there, but also we need to bolster our own energetic resources to recognize what's mine and what you get to keep. You get to keep that. I know what's mine. I'm super familiar with what's mine, right? And so these 2, I absolutely love. Okay. So this is protection from negative energy. Okay. So we'll cross the forearms, push the palms out. And I'm in pediatrics for my practicum placement at Primary Children's. And when I teach this with kiddos, I say their hands are deflective panels, and it's like drama, bam, negativity, bam, gossip, out, right? Haters, bam. I work with teens. But I mean, this is coming into ourselves too. Coming in and a few deep breaths here. Protection from negative energetic forces. Feeling into your body and your breath. Maybe 3 more big breaths in and out. Good. And then we'll release this, take the hands out, make soft fists, cross the forearms in the opposite direction, place the knuckles just beneath the collarbones. This is protection from the forces of nature, energetic forces of nature, right? So the intensity, the wind, the rain, the cold, the heat, the snow, the ice. We are not separate from nature. There is nature within and without. But here, from the excessive forces of nature, we protect ourselves. We experience absolute safety. A few deep breaths here, coming into ourselves, within us. Maybe one more big breath in and out. Good, and then we'll release that. Kind of shake. Okay, good. So those are the mudras. These 2 I do every day. These were kind of for fun because I just think they're so cute. And those 2 I do every day. And like I said, if I know I'm going to kind of go into a situation that might be heated, emotions are, you know, strong, opinions vary, you know, I'll kind of like come into myself, center myself, like a couple breaths. I'm about kind of dosing yourself with yoga throughout the day. The benefits are cumulative. So these are skills you just kind of think of like in your pocket, right? And if you use them, great. If they help, great. If they don't, great. That's great too. There's a lot of different skills that we can use. And just a little bit about the breath to kind of bring us home. Yoga therapy really kind of focuses on these key aspects. And that's where I come from, is that nourishing, you know, yoga in recovery, yoga and all kinds of phases of recovery, from illness, from injury, from grief, from stress, as Eli mentioned, the pandemic just weighing on us, the social unrest, although part of me goes like, yes, the other part of me goes, is aching, right? So yoga is kind of coming in and helping us work through the our difficulty with life's paradoxes, working through that, integrating experiences. So we do that through movement. These were movements. They were subtle movements. I didn't ask you to stand on your head. I won't do that today. Okay. But subtle movements, movement of the breath, observing the heart, right? Okay, so we think of quality of thoughtfulness arising from that centeredness. We think of quality of breath and body. Okay. And then lastly, I'll share with you a practice. When I was working on a pilot at Primary Children's in the oncology unit, this is a practice we made up together with a patient who had received a heart transplant, and just absolutely delightful human being, and working on literally integrating this new part of them, right? Like befriending this new vital part of them that was supporting and sustaining their life. And so it's very much as a yoga as anything else I could share with you, because it comes from that deep part of us that wants to befriend our body, that wants to be at peace with ourselves. So it's very simple. Kind of sit up tall. If you're in a chair, you can stand. That's cool too. Okay, we'll feel into our bodies and our breath. We're going to take our hands up to our hearts and settle in here and kind of notice what's stirring beneath the surface of things in your heart and your mind, your body and your breath. And this is our inhale. And our exhale, we kind of sweep across and flick the hands. And we do that several times. Inhale, receive the breath, exhale, clear. A few more rounds, just like this. Bringing in, releasing out. This beautiful reciprocity that's in every breath. Go at your own pace. No rewards for speed here. Receive and release. Maybe 3 more at your own pace. And then the last round, we'll rest our hands on the heart again for just a moment. Settle in, notice what there is to notice, soften where there is to soften. There you go. Yeah. It's our little dosing ourselves with yoga at our noon o'clock hour. So with that, I'll end with a little quote because I'm a Mr. Rogers kid. Mr. Rogers was a place of refuge for me at a time that I really needed it. And I love this quote: in times of stress, the best thing that we can do for each other is to listen with our ears and our hearts and be assured that our questions are just as important as our answers. Well, Mr. Rogers' wisdom. So I've got, of course, some resources as any good student would. And with that, I'll stop sharing and put that link in and stop talking.
That was amazing. I feel so relaxed. Delva says she feels relaxed too. How's everybody feeling? Thank you so much, Sarah Elizabeth. That was amazing. Other comments?
I think it's interesting that self-care or taking care of oneself doesn't have to take a large chunk of the day, and can be throughout the day. And so thank you.
Okay, great. And I think a couple people had to leave for class and they just posted in the chat to say thank you. And they had a great time. It was really enjoyable and relaxing. So thanks everyone for coming. We really appreciate your time, and thank you to our advisors, Eli and Delva Holmes, who's also here, as well as our students who participated and our presenters. So we'll do this again in April, and please let us know if you have any comments or questions or ideas for other wellness events. So thanks so much, everyone. Take care. Have a great day.